Welcome back to another episode of the M&A Guy Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Franco, founder and CEO of Meritage Partners and recent author of my new book, The Inevitable Exit. Get your copy at theinevitable.exit.com and you will learn a tremendous amount of how to turn the income you're producing in your business to a massive tool to create legacy wealth. Today is a very special day because I have a very, very special guest who has helped me along my journey in writing this book, Andrea Albright from Beverly Hills Publishing. And we're going to unpack a lot of information today, but what I really wanted to focus on together and what we titled this episode is From Authority to Acquisition, and how I believe you as an entrepreneur, as a stakeholder in your company, can drive enterprise value upward by creating and demanding and placing your authority in the marketplace. So without further ado, Andrea, thank you for being here with me and thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian.
Yes.
I'm thrilled to be here and I'm so excited to talk about our book that we published together.
Yes, it was a fun journey. We had some grueling days, long days, and I just remember sitting there and, talking. It was kind of like this kind of setting, like almost like a podcast setting. And then every time that I just couldn't find words to say, which is rare for me, you would just kind of poke me and like, all right, how about this? What else are you doing? Tell me another story, right? And so you would just really, if we could put this in a hardware terms, like you plugged in into my brain and you just downloaded what was in there, and it was amazing. I love your techniques.
Thank you. It's like a cattle prod, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Well, the information, the knowledge is inside of you, and it's my honor, my pleasure, and really my purpose in life to bring the knowledge, the information out of visionary thought leaders. And so I've been doing this for 20 years with my own books and my own brands.
Yes.
And so I know what makes a great book, and I specifically know how to work with thought leaders who are on the edge of creating new ideas.
Correct. And that's really, where I found myself at this intersection of, I know what I do, and anyone I speak to knows what we do very well. But, how do we share this story and this narrative with more of the world? And so this is, a reason why we started the podcast a couple of years ago. This is a reason why we finally got to the book, which has been bouncing around in my brain for the last, 10 plus years. And it's been a great experience.
I love when you say that, because I believe that authors are the visionaries and they are the ones who have solutions to humanity's biggest problems. And I'm passionate about books, first mentors before I ever knew anyone successful or wealthy. And I'm 100% self-made as an entrepreneur. And so I became obsessed with books very early on. And it was such a thrill and a pleasure to create with you. I have to say that some authors come to me and they don't really know what they're going to be saying yet. And so we have to kind of work through that. Whereas you were just ready and we were able to publish in as little as 6 weeks, actually, from the beginning to the end. And
it was a grind.
That was phenomenal because it just shows that it was inside of you, ready to come out.
It was just, let me free. So I've been reading I have the first copy of the book. It's a hard copy, and I actually labeled it as such.
Nice.
And so I've been reading it, and I read it any chance I get. And so my kids, my daughter specifically, she saw me reading, and she's like, Dad, why are you reading your own book? Just like with her little cute attitude. And I go, well, I said, I haven't read it on paper. I said, we've written it and we've read it over and over and over again on the screens. But I said, this is like a different experience. So it has been really cool because, I see the case studies that we have in here and in the stories of deals that we've done in the past. And it's really cool to physically hold the book and to read it. And it's a unique experience, even as the author and writer and working with you in the publishing of it. So it was, so I thought I'd share that funny story with you.
I think it's amazing. And I absolutely understand that experience because as an author myself, I will go back and read the books that I wrote years ago and they become it's a different lens, it's a different perspective.
Yeah.
And then you are so grateful that you recorded your journey. You know, it's like a snapshot in time, and your ideas are going to continue to evolve.
Correct.
But if we didn't capture them and publish them
Correct.
as they are right now, then you would just be on to the next, creating more ideas, revolutionizing the industry. And so it's going to be amazing to watch how your relationship with this book evolves over time, even.
And you and I have already discussed concepts for a second book, so we'll keep everyone in suspense.
Ooh,
but I've been
love
thinking
that.
about that a lot, and kind of what really I see the need in the I'll say the market, but specifically in the world when it comes to being educated on how to, in this book, for example, Inevitable Exit. You know, one of the most commonly overlooked wealth accelerators is a company. And so, you know, we talk about the stark difference between earning income and creating, wealth, right? It's so true, because when you look at the value in the asset that has been developed in the company, that's just sitting there. I'm meeting next week with a group, a well-known consumer good product. And so father's in his 70s, son's in his 40s, and the sons just can't stop talking about all the opportunity that they have in terms of growth. But dad's like, we've made money over the years. I want to slow down. You know, I want to build my exit. And so here they are, very successful business for almost, I think, over 30 years now. And so we want to configure a roadmap for the family so that the son can come into, not just leadership, he's already in leadership, but come into majority ownership, sunset his father, and drive forward with his growth initiatives. So to see all that coming into play is really cool to see, and will be yet another case study we'll talk about. But
It's amazing.
It's overlooked over and over and over again. And that was the thesis and the concept behind this book, is to give people, specifically, entrepreneurs, and some of those listening are starting up companies. So this is, they want to build a unicorn and they want to sell it, right? But not everyone has a unicorn. And so, but it really gives you that insider look to, okay, how do I think about the business at this stage, and then of course, beyond. And so we've unpacked all of that. And
it's been such an incredible journey writing and publishing this book with you, because I'm also growing my business. And as an entrepreneur, I learned so much from you, and realizing all the mistakes that entrepreneurs make that trap them. And this concept of, you don't have freedom, you have a job, unless you put real systems in place. And really, it's a mindset shift, I think. And I shared that with you as we were, writing it, and I was deep in your content and your ideas. And I said, you're rewiring my brain, because I'm realizing all the areas that I am stuck, and how I need to shift my thinking, or else I will never get out of this. And I have to say that even in these few short months that we've been working together, I have taken a much more, I would say it's a leadership, authoritative role, and also really testing, like, how does the business run without me? And if I take my hands off the wheel, does it crash? Or what? And now I get to see the flaws in my system and in my thinking. So thank you to, the entrepreneurial mindset. It's like, we think starting a business is the hard part, but you do trap yourself.
Yeah. It's a condition that we suffer from. It's a good condition. So as long as you direct it in the right way, regardless of industry you're in, right? How can they create an authoritative position in the market or in their respective industry? Could be healthcare. We see clients that are doctors that have written books. I don't see very many. I've seen a couple, in like blue collar spaces or industries, that a couple of folks have written books there. But those that have in like, say, blue collar type industries or companies, is that they've really positioned themselves in a way to attract talent within their organizations. As a thought leader, they become an industry leader. Somebody once told me, they said, Brian, why did you want to be the CEO of Meritage, right? And I says, well, I had a vision and I knew I could execute, and I wanted to be the CEO of, not just the title, I just wanted to execute on the vision. And he says, well, have you ever thought about being the CEO of your industry? And I go, whoa, like,
that's great.
I did the same thing you did.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, like, never thought about it. He said, but to be the CEO of your industry, you have to be that thought leader. You have to be the one that sets the examples of what's happening and why, right? Whether they're old concepts rebirth or new concepts that are based on evolution of how the market is and what have you. So ever since this resonated in my mind, but
Brilliant.
ever since I heard it, I constantly think about it. And so now, in my position, that I've worked very hard to get where we are, with the firm, with the podcast, with the book. I'm starting to hear the words I say, like on a podcast like this, like others say it.
Right.
And I'm like, and it's not offensive. It's actually very complimentary to know that people are listening to these types of conversations because they're meaningful, they're impactful, and we're giving people actionable advice to go and take with them on their journey. So let's dive into let's give them some actionable advice, shall we?
That's fantastic.
Okay.
And love this conversation.
All right, cool. So let's start here. So when you think of publishing a book for strategic growth, what should a CEO be looking to accomplish, in that? Because if it's just the authority, like that's one thing, but you got to walk the walk and talk the talk, right? So, but how do you bring that out of people? How do you help them discover what they have? Because it starts with a thought, and you're meeting with a colleague today of ours that has had this thought for a long time too, to write a book, and he just never moved on it, right? He did share with me the other day. He's like, I actually written some chapters.
Oh yeah, yes.
Over the years, and then it's like.
That's very common.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Half-written chapters, or some of them have been working on their books for years. The longest one of my clients was ever working on the book before they met me, he was 17 years in.
Wow.
And then we published in as little as 90 days.
Yeah.
And so the thing that a lot of authors think is they think that time is going to be an advantage, where actually if you set a deadline, it forces you to bring forth your greatest ideas. And this is what thought leaders do. So the word thought leader is really the same as the word authority. They can be used interchangeably. Yeah. And I like the definition of who do you think of when you think of the industry? Person as the authority in the industry can only hold one position in the mind of the audience. And so when you position yourself as the authority, meaning you are the one who people turn to for solutions, for knowledge, and most of all, the vision. Yeah. Where are we going? That's the authority position. And the word authority comes from the word author. It's inside of the word. Authority. And I'm really big into words, obviously, as a publisher and an author myself. But this root of the word authority and author comes from AUTH, which is Latin for self. So to know thyself. The more you are aligned with yourself and your truth, the more you are an authority. The stronger you are as an author who, from your self-knowledge, self-direction, you are so confident that you know it's time to guide others. It's time to share with others. And so to be a thought leader, it's actually the most abundance mindset and also selfish place, because you're giving from a place of abundance. And I say selfish in a positive way because it's for your own self of service. You know that you're aligned with your truth, you're honoring your truth, and you're sharing from that authentic place.
Yeah.
And when you hold that position, no one can take it away from you. Yeah. And yes, you want to continuously evolve, continuously solve problems, because otherwise you're a fraud, right? So that's why I love the conversation around authority, and that's why I've dedicated my life to publishing true authorities, because when we can truly unlock that from the individual, now we don't have, there's so many charlatans and people who are really just copying ideas. And you mentioned that people are starting to quote you. This is a very common thing that happens with thought leaders, because we are on the edge. I call it the next edge, where you can see what's happening beyond. And you're providing solutions, you're giving examples, and then the words that you choose to bring back from this place, it clicks in their mind, and then they actually think that they created it, because it rewires their brain to now have clarity. Yes. And it happens where they will quote back to you your ideas. That's when you know you are truly a thought leader. And when this started happening to me, at first I was like kind of offended. I'm like, they're stealing my ideas. And that's when I realized I have to publish often, because by publishing your intellectual property, now we have a copyright protection. You were the original creator of these ideas. And now as everyone else starts to talk about it, you'll hear people, is this an inevitable exit? This will become a phrase and a concept. And we created it. And now you own it as a copyright and as a published author. So this is why it's so important that thought leaders continue to evolve the conversation, publish so that your intellectual property grows in value.
So that is so cool. And then to all that, I mean, you got someone who was stuck in the mud for 17 years and you got them within 90 days to finish. That just speaks to your talent and your gift.
Thank you.
And I've experienced it firsthand. And so I want to comment on the inevitable exit and the word inevitable, because
Absolutely.
I maybe use that word. I don't know. I've used it, but I just see it and hear it everywhere now. But more importantly, so when I'm on video calls, I have my background as a picture of the book and a QR code for people to access it. And so, but what's funny, I don't even say anything. And throughout the conversations, people are saying inevitable exit.
Amazing.
And it's like, wow, like this is so cool to see.
This is what the title of the book can do. And this is a huge mistake authors make, is they name their book something very obscure and ethereal and abstract, like Day My Life Had Meaning, something like that. You know, you hear these titles, right?
Exactly.
And to them, it sounds so poetic and profound. But if you have to work to understand what someone is saying, you're never going to do it, because the mind is just on to the next thing. What I create, and this is my marketing background before I became a publisher, is how do we create, I call it an authority hook that grabs the audience and positions you as the authority. And then they don't have to work to remember. It's impossible to forget. And so we created this phrase, inevitable exit. It is the title of your book. It's your intellectual property. You will always be the owner of this. And it's now a concept, a phrase, a philosophy that your industry will use forever.
It's already occurring, and it's really cool to see, especially in these video meetings. And it's like, yes, it's there subliminally and actively.
Yeah, and it's so great because it works out very well. You're like, well, you could go down the entrepreneurial path of never knowing if you're ever going to get out, or you can have an inevitable exit.
Yeah, exactly. Which
so it paints the dream as well.
It really
and
does.
that was where, when that phrase came to me, and this is what I do, is I create a new phrase that no one has ever put these words together before. And now we have a new concept. That's what a thought leader does, is you evolve the conversation. And so by positioning yourself in this way, now you have no competition. You are in a category all your own.
Yeah, no, it's true. And because we service a lot of clients in the lower to middle markets, and you know, their services or their products may not be all that differentiated in the market, but you do see the cultures that these companies develop, and some of them are just remarkable. I mean, they could be, you know, smaller, $15, $20 million companies, revenue a year companies. You know, they're not the 100 and 150 million and $250 million a year company, but their culture is just so unique. And so contagious, actually, is a good word to use, because you see what they do, and their profit margins are better than their larger competitors, and they're not benefiting from the synergies or rebates or buy power that larger groups have, right? But it all comes down in the culture, and that culture derives from the leader or the leaders in the organization. And so they are the authority in their companies, right? But it goes back to that question someone asked me at one point, is like, do you want to be the CEO of just your company or also your industry? And so I think that I saw a need, particularly in investment banking, because there's a lot of people talking about being exit ready or exit planning. And it's usually a secondary sort of service to a wealth advisor, a CPA.
It's something that the entrepreneur is like, yeah, I'll get to that later.
Yeah.
I'm too busy running my business.
Yeah. But it's great to see these tools available to people out there, but it really does matter, like how you're delivering that message, because a couple $1 billion of successful transactions that we've completed over the last 20 years, what people don't understand, because we're not highlighting this on our website, there were deals early in my career that fell apart. And those deals that fell apart, as I shared with you, we studied those companies. And that's how we came down to the 7 value drivers, is because we were looking at, okay, what do these companies need to look like? How do we enable investors, whether they're publicly traded, privately held, or private equity backed? How do we enable those investors to be happy to pay more for an investment? And that answer's in the book, like demystify all of that. And that is something that is hard to come by, because really when you look at, when you look at universities right now teaching entrepreneurship, they're not necessarily teaching from the angle and positioning of startup. They're saying, no, don't start a company. Like, go buy a company that's there, that's been run a certain way for the last 15, 20, 30, 40 years by likely a baby boomer, right? And, but they've been doing things the same way for the last 15, 20, 30, 40 years, right? And so they're teaching this, and it's important because you could step into that opportunity. There's capital available from debt and equity for them to leverage the acquisition of those companies. And so, but what should they be looking for, right? How do they know what's a good deal or a bad deal? And so we're barely at the first stages of really educating now students on how to go out and conduct due diligence, and make sure that the company that they met on day one is the same company after they've gone through their analysis. So
you're teasing your next book.
I might be.
Yes, like, I know
wink,
this
wink.
is all new content. And this is the perfect example of you as a thought leader, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is what's so freeing about publishing. And I've written over 20 books myself as an author. And every time I write it just feels like, okay, it's good, it's captured. And it's amazing how it opens up your mind for new space, because you know that this foundation has been laid, it's been built. And now you're on to the next. You're on to the next solution and how you can solve the problems for your industry. Because that's what thought leaders do, is we continue to evolve the conversation.
It's very humbling, because, as much of we've shared in this book and the hints to the books to come, it's really put me in a position where I'm constantly thinking of what can be done differently or better, right? And so when you get in that mindset, you see it everywhere, right? I mean, everywhere, even not in my own company, you just see it in my clients' companies. And so you're constantly looking for that hole to fill, or you're looking for that gap to, build a bridge over. But I'm starting to see it more and more everywhere I look. And it's very
Isn't
humbling.
it so cool, though? Because once you train your mind to think like this, I'm always writing my next book. It's never done, because now you see patterns and you also are getting this feedback. You've shared with me some of the emails and the way that people are responding. Had the honor of being at your book launch and seeing your father cry and hold it in his hands for the very first time. And you realize that, wow, this is really meaningful. This is very special, and it's making an impact in people. And so there are very few things in the world that are this fulfilling. And I see you receiving that. And I just kept saying, wait until you're holding your book in your hands for the first time and you start to get those emails and that feedback. Your book has changed my life. Your book has helped me build a business differently. And that's what makes you want to do more of it, because you're serving from a place of value.
With my father at the event was very special, because as his story, he's had 2 spinal fusions and from bad
It was
injuries.
amazing to see him.
Yeah, and he doesn't usually, it's hard for him just to get out of bed, let alone drive somewhere, even if it's to the doctors, but then to drive to the event. And, he stood himself up on his cane. He's usually in a wheelchair otherwise, but it was very cool, because his story has been a lot of the purpose behind this book as well, because he had a very successful business when we were kids, and that business deteriorated with his health, and to the point that the business had to close. There was never an exit strategy and never an exit plan. To his defense, like, he was late 30s in his first injury, and like, who thinks like I'm in my 40s and I'm like, I got 20 years more. You know what I mean?
We're invincible,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. Until I woke up this morning, I could not move my neck. I was like, oh God, so it's like, but it was very special to have him there. And so
What an amazing continuation of his legacy.
it is.
Knowing
Yeah,
that his story is published, this is where books become, they make you immortal, truly. I mean, books will last longer than any one lifetime.
Yeah.
And that you shared that with your father and shared his story and legacy. I mean, I have chills right now because what's more meaningful than knowing you are tapping into generational legacy, and how beautiful that your message is about creating legacy and wealth and freedom for families and entrepreneurs moving forward.
100%. And it is cool. It's very cool because, this has been partially a rainbow because my family, specifically my father and my mother, they've gone through some terrible times with his injuries and with the spinal fusions. But to see like that was not all for nothing. Like this is now something that we can help other entrepreneurs and other families avoid those circumstances. Because listen, we've done the fun celebrations of closings, popping champagne bottles and high-fiving and all that, as I talk about. But I've also had the widowed woman crying on my shoulder after her husband died prematurely from a heart attack at 50. And so you see these things and it's like, okay, this is not, yes, we're investment bankers. Yes, we're involved in transactions, but we're working with human beings, right? And there's expectations there that need to be met, but they need to be understood before they could be met. And you could really help form and formulate, what those expectations could be if they're too low. If I would say they're never too high, but if someone says, I want to sell my company for $100 million, okay, great, we'll do it. You're not there today, but if you do X, Y, and Z over the next specific amount of time, we'll bring you that offer. That's fine, but you have to be worthy of a $100 million offer, right? So, but kind of when I was thinking too, I want to jump into a couple other topics and subjects because business owners are usually, their identity is tied to their company. You look in my closet, I have like 100 of these shirts. Like, what should I wear today? Oh, this Meritage Partners shirt, right?
It's very Steve Jobs of you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's no collar neck.
Yes.
Or turtleneck.
Turtleneck, yes.
I don't think I could do a turtleneck.
I know, it's a lot.
I would feel so like
restricted,
like someone's, choking me out. But all that, our identities become really part of our companies. But when you think of those business owners and I've seen some that have gone through this process, some on their own. One gentleman sold his business and he's like, I'm gonna start helping people exit planning. I'm like, that sounds great. How did you come up with this idea? He's like, well, I sold my software company. No one told me. He had an unsolicited offer come in. Okay. No one told me what was going to come. I got it done. And through that whole process, I learned all the things that you should be doing if you're selling specifically a software company. And so now that's become his life work, is to help other software developers like, okay, how do I position this?
Nice.
And so it was cool because we've had a very inspiring conversation together about that. And we traded some ideas, which was fun. But coming back full circle, how do you find, like, when you're looking to work with an author, how do you really take them from, okay, you've been an influence and authority in your business, right? How do you get them to be that in the world, so to speak?
Great question. So you went through the process.
Yeah.
I call it the magic authority hook.
Yes.
And back to that sense of self, we start,
yes.
It's a Venn diagram where I look at the vision of the author and then the market, what market and audience we want to go after. And then where is that market in denial? What pain are they hiding from themselves? And the way that those three circles intersect in the very middle is the magic authority hook. And so I take the author through a process and we start with the vision. What do you want this book to do? What is your dream and your goal if all obstacles were removed? And I create from the ultimate vision because I believe that's where the soul speaks to the individual. And again, it has to be authentic. It has to come from self, right? If I would have come to you and said, hey, I know the name of the book and what we should do, it wouldn't have landed. It wouldn't have been an extension of you. And that's a big mistake a lot of people make with their publisher is the publisher takes control. But that's why millions of books are published every year, but they never make an impact in the market. Because I believe it has to come from the extension of the self, the extension of the author. So that's why we spent so much time really focused in on your vision that's coming through your soul, your life's purpose, your meaning. And from there, I look into, okay, who is the market? Who are we going to impact? And, every author says to me, I want to help everybody. And it comes from a beautiful place.
It does.
It comes from a place of service.
Yes.
And, in all likelihood, you probably could help everybody at some position, right? Because you have so much value. You're such a kind and giving person. But if you say, I help everybody, then you're a generalist. And you are not a specialist. And so no one is going to think, you wrote this book for me. I have to get it. And so by saying, okay, who are we here to serve? Who is that target audience? And by eliminating 99.99% of people who it's not for, that 0.01%, just like what you're experiencing, they are calling you and emailing you and saying, oh my God, you wrote this book for me.
Yes.
And so that's a hard part that I take my authors through is eliminating all the people who we are not going to write the book for. And this targeting is really what the marketing and the messaging and the brand needs to grab. Because if you don't stand for someone, then you stand for no one. And so we get that clarity of who is the market. And then from there, I really have a sixth sense. And I'm more and more confident. Thank you. Of saying this publicly. It used to be something that I kind of hid because I thought it might sound kind of weird or woo-woo. But now that I've done it in 26 industries and I've created multiple 7-figure and 8-figure and even a 9-figure success story, I realize that I do have a gift. It's an intuitive gift where I can see what is the market doing, where are they in pain, and what are they hiding from themselves? Where are they in denial? And if you can wake someone up from their denial, you give them an aha moment and they go, oh my gosh, I do want this. And sometimes they've never even admitted it to themselves, but you give them that awakening, like this term and this hook, inevitable exit. That entrepreneur is like, you're right. I do want to make this inevitable. And you give them permission. Now this hook grabs them. You don't have to sell them. You don't have to convince them. They are like, you are speaking directly to me. And so that's why I spend so much time in the beginning with my authors to really interview you, draw this out of you, because it has to come from the truth of the biggest impact you can make and your soul's highest purpose.
Yeah, as you're talking about the Venn diagram, I was thinking of an illustration, like almost like a cartoon illustration of you hooking up someone's like core to an amplifier and just pointing that amplifier in the right direction.
Beautiful.
Right. You said the words, that's what the picture I painted in my mind.
It's a great metaphor.
Yeah.
And because now this book it's going to have its own life. That's what's so beautiful about it is, it's truly giving life to something that will go off and serve. It's an extension of you that you can't have that one-on-one conversation with millions and millions of people.
That's right.
But the book will.
Absolutely.
And so it's going to continue to go out there and have its impact and fulfill this purpose. And now we'll create another book and it will have its own target audience and its own target market. And so many authors make the mistake of putting everything they know into one book. And no one can follow that. You're 20 years into your career. Imagine anyone trying to even grasp that would just be too overwhelming versus this is a targeted, systemized formula that grabs the audience, allows your greatest impact. And then when we create another book, it will have its own purpose and meaning.
I love it. I love it. Well, look, this has been
Kind of like different businesses, right?
it
Different
is.
entities.
No, it is.
Yeah.
It is like different entities.
Right.
And they have different purposes and different intents.
Exactly. And different exits.
Exits. I see a theme.
I like it.
Well, this episode has been amazing because it's really given direction on not just the work that we've done together, which I wanted to highlight because you've impacted me in a great way, and forever we're connected forever.
Thank you. It's
And,
my honor. And you as me, and you have
thank you.
also impacted me tremendously. I'm
Awesome.
a better entrepreneur because of you.
I love that. I love hearing that. And but it speaks to, and I'm humbled by it because it really speaks to the hard work and effort. Like you talked about, it was a grind. Like I sent you pictures of my workstation while we're even this summer on vacation, celebrating my wife and I's 20th anniversary. I was up at 5 a.m. Hawaii time, so it wasn't terrible, reading the book, reading chapter and chapter and rewriting and editing but took that to get to this place. And I'm grateful and I'm honored.
Well, I have to say
this.
you were amazing to work with because you took it seriously. You understood the deadline. And this is why I do really like working with business people because we understand there's an investment of time and energy and also the momentum. People who draw out the books, traditional publishers can take 2 to 5 years to write a book. And I just think about like, wow, how many ideas could be created if they had this time frame in this formula, because we would have more authors. And when you say, oh, I'm so excited to do my next book, that's the best thing I could ever hear, because that means that it was an enjoyable experience. It was a creative process. And that's what I want to do, is remove all those obstacles. Yes, it is work. Yes, we have to meet those deadlines. But then the final product is so rewarding and fulfilling, you can say, hey, let's do it again.
Yeah, let's do it again. Let's go.
Let's
Round
go.
2.
Now we're 2. Yes.
Yeah. Well, listen, thanks for being on again. I'd love to have you on in the future. We'll talk more about what's next.
I would love that.
So stay tuned out there. But thank you for joining this episode of the M&A Guy Podcast. We have a free gift for you. We basically distilled the 10 fatal mistakes that could really kill your exit and steal your legacy. So this is a free gift from us to you. Go to inevitableexit.com, get your free gift, and you'll get an opportunity to purchase the book as well. I hope it's insightful. I hope it's inspirational, and I hope it gives you the direction that you need on your journey as an entrepreneur. But thank you again for joining this episode. We'll see you next week. Until then, keep growing that empire.